lawyers to ask some of those practical questions. So to have a chance to come back on campus, it certainly makes me feel young, and it's exciting to see a program like this that wasn't around whenever I was here. So kudos to you all for what you've done on campus. Thanks to Google and the internet, I've been able to learn a little bit about each of you and your very impressive accomplishments. And I think you've all laid a great foundation for what will be ahead. Knowing that time is limited, we'll go ahead and get started. What I was asked to speak about today was a little bit about the transition of leadership on campus to leading in the real world, which are all of you seniors? Yes. So 6 months from now, you're going to be thinking, what in the world do I do with what I've learned in the classroom? And I may ask them to close their ears for this, but as I often say, I learned a heck of a lot more on campus outside the classroom than I did inside the classroom through those leadership experiences in terms of working with people, planning, and things like that. My in-class education was great, but those out-of-class leadership opportunities are really what have made a big difference to me. So, what I decided to do was take a little bit of a different approach. Instead of just this being my thoughts on that transition of leadership from being a college student to leadership in the real world, I took some time and emailed a number of friends of mine that I was on campus with in the late 90s and got their input on a series of questions that I'll cover. And these are people who accomplished great things while they were here, lots of different levels of leadership experience. They're all friends of mine. They've all gone on to some pretty amazing things. H&M Construction is a steel construction company that builds distribution centers for the Gap and Dick's Sporting Goods and Titleist Golf and places like that. Steve Kennedy, who's with Dow Chemical, Steve graduated with an engineering degree from UT. He went to work for Eastman. He then was hired by Dow. Dow paid for him to get an MBA at Northwestern University, and he is now their director of commercial operations in North America. One guy's a CPA at a local firm. One started his own real estate company. One is an HR manager for Bridgestone in Nashville, and another has started and sold 4 different companies. So these people and the responses you're going to see to the questions I sent them come from a lot of different perspectives. But what I want to talk about today, if you go back, there's an arrow there between then and now. So all of us are now 40 plus. So what I want to talk about today is that arrow, because that's where you all are headed right now. You're about to get on that arrow to figure out where are you 20 years from now. Change is a word that'll come up a lot for you over the next 6 months heading toward graduation. And I think change is really just a time of opportunity. Much like 4 years ago or 5 years ago when you left home to come to the University of Tennessee, and that was a big change for all of you, I'm sure. For me, I came from a small town in Middle Tennessee that had fewer people that were on the campus here, and so that was a big change and a big adjustment for me, and the same may be true for you all as you look to relocate or start a graduate program or whatever the case may be. You know, I sit here and I think about the situation you're all in, and I'm really kind of envious of you. I've been married for 15 years now and am very thankful to have 2 children and a professional degree and a great career. My wife and I, though, often think back to really this time where you all are, where you have every opportunity in the world in front of you, and it's just a matter of which opportunities you all choose to take. I mean, we think all the time, when we first got married, we thought we were broke and had no time, and then we had children and we realized, now we're broke and we have no time. And we think, you know, we wish we would have traveled to Europe, or we wish we would have moved away and lived in New York or Chicago or San Francisco, whatever it may be, we wish we would have done a better job when we were younger, taking advantage of the opportunities that were unique to that time, that we really could and should have taken advantage of now. My arrow, a little bit just about my personal story, about what's happened between 2000 and now. A lot of it was planned, a lot of it wasn't. I graduated from UT undergrad, went straight to law school, met my wife, got married, passed the bar exam, started work, and about 15 months after I started work, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer that then metastasized to brain cancer. I would work here from about 8:30 in the morning till 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon. I'd load up and I'd drive to Middle Tennessee, help my dad out with my mom, drive back late that night, and repeat that process over and over. That was something that wasn't expected. But by that point in time, whenever I was doing that full time, if you would, I had a son at home, and my wife had started a business, and so I was pulled in a lot of different directions, but it was what I had to do to kind of keep all the balls I was juggling in the air. In the midst of that, my wife's dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. So all these things that I thought I had planned for that arrow of, how I was going to work X number of hours, I was going to become a partner at the firm, I was going to have all these great clients and be successful. There were a lot of things coming along and trying to derail that. And in the midst of that professionally, we had a recession that hit where my clients were no longer as eager to pay for legal fees. When they were having to worry about paying their own employees and that sort of thing. So all these things have happened on my arrow, some of which I was prepared for, some of which I was not, but I can tell you that a lot of my time as a student leader on campus really helped me for that, because you're in rapid fire leadership, right? You are president of an organization for a year, you're an officer in an organization for a year, you know that you're only on campus really for 4 years. And so you have to move and react quickly. And a lot of that experience I had as a student leader has really helped me as all these things have come along, attempting to kind of make that arrow maybe more of a broken arrow. A lot of that experience I got when I was sitting in your seats really helped me maneuver and navigate. The other thing I'll say quickly here, the arrow implies that at the end of it there's a destination, which implies that at some point you will arrive. And I can tell you that sitting here at 40 years old, having arrived at the top of the age hill, if you will, and looking around, there's still a lot of places I want to go. And I don't feel like I've arrived anywhere, and I'm not content where I am now. I really want to push myself professionally as a father, as a youth sports coach. I want to push myself to be better. So don't ever be content and feel like you've arrived, because you haven't, and there's always more for you to accomplish. So what I did, I asked these people 4 questions. And let's see, I don't want to skip. Oh, there we go. The first question I asked, what's the biggest difference you see between campus leadership and real world leadership? What advice would you give people like you all who are about to transition from being campus leaders to being leaders in the real world? The third question was, name a trait that you believe is most important for a recent college graduate. And then fourth, what was the biggest challenge you faced transitioning from campus leader to professional? So the first question, what was the biggest difference between leading on campus and leading in the real world? And we got a number of different answers. Working hand in hand with people who aren't passionate, right? I mean, everybody in college, you kind of come from the same mindset. You're here to improve yourself. You're here to learn. You're here to grow. You get into an organization, and my secretary, when I first started at the firm, had been with the firm for 27 years. Do you know how excited she was to have a 25-year-old, fresh out of law school, attorney who had no clue what he was doing? She was not. And it took me a long time to learn how to deal with her. and so that we could work together. She wasn't as passionate about what she was doing as I was about what I was doing. It's harder to invest your time, and that's a little bit why I told you the story about my arrow. When you get off campus, there are a lot more things demanding your time. Maybe you have family obligations. Maybe there are professional organizations that you're involved in that take away from your actual work and career. There are more consequences in the real world. I mean, if I make a mistake right now, I have a client who will find themselves in some form of trouble, difficulty, or hurdle. There are also a lot more critics. There are a lot of people who maybe they don't want to see you succeed. On campus, we're all together. Like, we want Dance Marathon or whatever the event is to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars so that we can all pat each other on the back and give high fives. We want SGA to do well. We want our sports teams to do well and that sort of thing. In the real world, you get into a situation where not everybody is cheering for you and the direction that you and your organization are going. That being said, while there are differences in scale and circumstances and consequences, the skill sets are the same. You've got to be able to work with people. You've got to be able to make a decision and be confident in it. You've got to be able to and willing to work hard, and you've got to be willing to adapt to situations. The other advice that a number of people mentioned was identifying real decision makers. When Chancellor Cheek was chancellor, you knew that ultimately the buck stopped with him in the university organization. Maybe down the line, though, there were vice chancellors and directors who made different decisions along the way, and it's very easy on a college campus to identify who those decision makers are. It took me 2 or 3 years at my law firm to figure out, okay, if I really want something to happen, this is the person I need to go talk to first, because that's the person who's a real change agent. They may not have the title, they may not have the experience, but they're the person who actually gets things done. And that's an important thing to figure out wherever you end up, is finding those people who can really help you figure out how to get things done. So the next question was, what advice do you wish you would have received when you were sitting where all of these students are sitting? And a lot of this, there's overlap here, but I wanted to include it just as they wrote it so that you would have the effect.